Our modern industrial supply chain is very complicated. Even something as simple as the processing of oil goes through many steps, from something like what we draw out of the ground to what we perhaps use and distribute. We rely on this vast global network to transport goods all over the planet. Some technologies and some kinds of knowledge live at scale. I already talked about the need to copy things, right? So there's the kind of knowledge that can live in a single lineage of student to teacher: Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. There's the kind of knowledge that lives in a steel mill, how to build a steel mill that uses the Bessemer process. It might be only in 17, 20, 25 places around the world, maybe 100, maybe 200, depending on which stage of the takeoff you look at. Some technologies require a global consumer market to be viable. Some steam engines require hundreds of millions of consumers. If that network of transport, supply, breaks down, the economic incentive and niche for the technology to remain breaks down. And there's a nice historical example. About 1100 BC, you had, actually 1200 BC, you had a string of highly advanced civilizations in the Eastern Mediterranean that were using sea trade, which, as everyone knows, it's much cheaper to transport materials, goods, and people over the sea than it is to do so over land, especially, in the age before rail. You had the Mycenaean Greeks, you had the civilization at Knossos, you had the Hittites, you had the Assyrians, you had the Egyptians. In about 50 to 60 years, almost all of those face severe collapse, with Egypt being essentially the only exception, and even the Egyptians ceased monumental construction for about 100 years. Literacy was completely lost in the Greek mainland. For about 300 years, they were illiterate after this, and writing as we know it of classical Greece, the Greece of Socrates and so on, that had to be reinvented. It was a true Greek Dark Age. Some other parts of the Middle East were a little bit luckier, but in some places we do not find pottery. So there are some regions where pottery is not found. The importance of this is that pottery is a Neolithic technology. And when I talk to archaeologists, they say, oh, if we don't find pottery in a region in the Neolithic, we just assume it's uninhabited because it's such a ubiquitous technology. It's something that every small tribe could make for itself. So the population collapse apparently was so bad that in some regions they were just completely depopulated. This is a beautiful, beautiful temple from Abu Simbel. You might know of this. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, has an interesting storied history when it was moved. That is a beautiful object that was crafted just before. This is monumental architecture. It has a lot of precise features so that the light from the sun hits the statue of the relevant god at exactly the right time. It took years and years to construct. It happens in a really remote location, all down in the south of Egypt, almost in the border area. It was constructed by Ramses II, right? So this is on the eve of that situation. Here is what's been termed Agamemnon's mask, another example of wealth. It's a golden mask found from the Mycenaeans. Another example of a big trade network breaking down, and with it, a loss of knowledge. Actually, let me go a step back. The most important thing about this breakdown is this is a civilization powered by bronze. Bronze requires tin and copper. Tin and copper tend to not be found in the same regions. The crucial thing that's lost is the ability to produce bronze cheaply at scale. Again, consider steel, right? We have steel, they had bronze. Everything from weapons to the tools used to carve this out of stone, to the tools used to shape this golden mask and basically dig for the golden ore and so on. All of that is made out of bronze. So when that breaks down, states no longer can field militaries, economic productivity drops, and all of the civilizations dissipate. The red X's there, by the way, are destroyed city sites. These are just places that burn down in a period a little over 40 to 50 years. Yeah, so, ability to provide security breaks down, economic productivity breaks down. The society started basically pillaging each other as much as they could for the remaining resources.